Okay, welcome back. Now we're going straight to the interview segment of the show. Now, sometimes last year, the federal government, arising from a Federal Executive Council meeting, announced that the value-added tax in Nigeria had been increased or jacked up from 5% to 7.5%, and it takes effect this year. That was also used in preparing the budget for the year 2020. We initially thought that the implementation would commence from January, but the federal government came out again and said the implementation would commence from the 1st of next month. Now, that's actually the talking point on the show this morning. We're talking about the value-added tax, VAT, and the implication on the Nigerian economy, and most importantly, the common man on the street. With us in the studio this morning is a management consultant. He's Executive Director, Startup Plus Africa, in the person of Mr. Adeleke David Adekunle. Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to Morning Rendezvous.
It's a pleasure.
Good morning, Mr. Adeleke.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Now we're talking about tax. Let's try and break it down, bring it to the understanding of a layman. When we say value-added tax, what exactly do we mean?
Okay, so value-added tax is a secondary, or let's call it an indirect tax, that is enforced on the populace. So in a sense, if you are not working and earning, and you cannot be captured in the tax net,
okay,
you somewhat pay some tax to the government for consumption. Though in advanced countries we have a sales tax, which covers purely for consumption, but in Nigeria we have the value-added tax, which is by far the lowest, one of the lowest globally. And then in some special kinds of businesses like hotels and all, we now have a 5% sales tax, which still remains. So if you are going into a hotel, your bill will always have the sales tax and the value-added tax. But for the general populace, whether you are actively engaged or not, as long as you are consuming something, there is a value-added tax attached to it. Howbeit, there are some goods that are exempted from that.
Okay.
Those are goods that generally affect everyone, but there has been lots of debate on what those goods really represent. Because when you say basic goods, I can claim that what I have is basic goods. So there have been lots of, but all of that has been clarified now. So essentially, value-added tax is like a general tax that everyone pays on consumption.
Very well.
Of goods and services.
So it therefore means that some of us pay tax and we pay VAT.
Like I said, VAT is an indirect tax.
Indirect.
But you see, the VAT is, the tax you pay on your earnings is a direct tax.
Okay.
Now this is an indirect tax, and it's on as long as you are consuming. So you pay that tax for earning.
Okay.
Because the government has created an enabling environment for you to live in peace, to go around peacefully without any fear of terrorism or what have you,
Okay.
and then you can go about your business or your job, and then you earn income. So you are paying a tax in appreciation of the efforts of the government to create an enabling environment for you.
Okay.
That's your income tax, personal income tax.
Okay.
And for businesses, it's corporate income tax or company income tax.
Okay.
So you are paying to say, oh, thank you for making it possible for us to do business around here.
Okay.
But the consumption thing idea is for VAT. It's for everybody, irrespective of who you are. As long as you are consuming something.
Very well. I was also going to ask you. You mentioned that in this part of the world, in Nigeria, that our VAT is one of the lowest.
Yes.
And now, so that's why we're upping it from 5 to 7.5.
That's not why we are raising it.
No, I'm not saying that's why.
Okay.
I'm just saying you acknowledge that it's been one of the lowest.
Yes.
And at this time, it's going a little up.
Yes.
Fine. Do you think it is really people's friendly? And given the difficulties around, people are talking about it. Some are kicking. Do you think it is a justifiable thing to do at this time? Do you think it is sensitive or insensitive?
Okay, so in evaluating this, it's important to clearly examine the entire finance bill in its entirety to properly understand the backdrop of all of this. Because what the media has successfully done is to misinform a lot of Nigerians about the essence of the bill.
Okay.
Now, this bill is not just about VAT. VAT is just one. There are so many other parts. In fact, personally, seeing it, and for the purpose of what I do, I mean, it's good news. It's welcome news. Now, for the first time, Nigeria can take a step in this direction. So I personally commend what the government has done with this bill. So this is it. So government says, instead of paying 5%, pay 7.5%. However, there are some goods that are exempted, and these are the goods that cut across the general populace. I had to, try to catch a list of it. Which
yes, I think I also I think I also have a good number. Honey was added to the list. Bread, cereal, cooking oil, milk, culinary,
fish, all kinds of fish,
flour and
ornamental
starch.
fish.
Yes, fruits, live and raw meat and poultry, milk, nuts, pulses, roots, salt, vegetables, even water. All added to the list. Yes.
Wow.
All added to the list.
So what we're simply saying is, on your basic daily consumption, you're not paying this 7.5% VAT. So what's your problem? Why are you bothered? You're not paying it, number one. Number two, you places where you're going to be having to pay it will be on maybe things like laundry services, soap, some other exempted items. Yeah, they're part of your daily life, but the majority of the things that most of us, if you check it, most of them focus on food. Which no one in Nigeria can do without. So if we all don't have to pay VAT on most of our food items, then we don't have a problem. But at least to clean your clothes, it shouldn't cost you anything to add the 7.5% VAT. So essentially is to say, if you're buying soap for 100 naira, I'll assume, so if you're going to calculate the VAT on that, the VAT should be something about 4.2 thereabout. But then that means that VAT will now rise to about maybe 6 naira. So that means the cost of the soap may now be, instead of 100 naira, may now be 102 or 103 naira, maybe 105 naira at the most now. So if you look at it, the impact really on the basic commodity will not be so significant. But the people that should really be talking about this VAT increase should be the businesses.
Okay, now I like where you just went to, because the clamor has been the impact on the economy, and I know that part of the reasons advanced by the federal government for increasing the VAT to 7.5% was that the federal government would need it to shore up its earnings with a view to meeting the impact of the new national minimum wage, with a view to being able to pay that to public servants. And I just read a reaction also from the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industries yesterday, where they were also warning the federal government that the 7.5% VAT will impact not on, we will not have so much impact out there, but it will affect manufacturing mostly, and it will affect the cost of production, and peradventure put the impact back to the consumers. On the consumers. So how do we reconcile that? Is it really that alarming?
Okay, so like I said, again, it takes us back to the entire bill. You see, for a VAT increase, so we have a part of the bill that says that small businesses with turnover 25 million and less are totally exempted from collecting VAT and remitting to the FIRS, right? Which implies that every small business earning less than 25 million naira or 25 million and below will pay VAT on their services, but will not be able to offset it with VAT collected. This is the idea. As a business person, let's say we get supplies for paper and all of that. Now, on that purchase, we pay VAT, right? We pay VAT for electricity, we pay VAT for this, pay VAT for that. And then when we render services and goods out there, people pay us VAT, which we collect. Now, the VAT that we have collected, we deduct it from the VAT we have paid out.
Okay.
Then it's the balance on it. If we have more with us after deducting, whatever is left with us is what we pay to the FIRS. So we recover the VAT we have paid.
Okay. So the excess is paid.
So what we have collected in excess is what we now remit to the FIRS.
FIRS.
But now that will no longer apply.
Okay.
because we will simply be paying, but we're not collecting back. So businesses are going to have to pay VAT, but will not be able to offset it with that mechanism that existed before. Howbeit, the buffer is that you are exempted from paying company income tax of 30%.
So that's the incentive now.
So it's typically saying, okay, I will have offset my VAT and become a collector for the federal government, but I will pay 30% of my profits at the end of the year. But now, I don't even pay that at all, but then I pay the VAT. So if I were to do a rough math, that would be like saving about 22.5% of my profits. Kind of
simple arithmetic.
So it's still good. It's still a very good deal for the business, because what you are still retaining of your earnings is still on the high side. But the impact on the population, like I said, will only be in products and services other than the ones that have been exempted. But it's been, I think that the bill was amended in a way that, the act was fully amended in a way that makes optimal sense for the populace. That we will not all be having to bear up under too much, you know. So for manufacturers, the manufacturers that will be having issues really will be those that are producing products that are not VAT exempted. But mind you, there are also some other incentives that they have.
For them.
There are tax incentives on transportation that they have. There's some other. So, but the thing is, we're not talking about the all-encompassing part of this. Because as much as possible, the government is, you know, if you look at the agenda of the government, agriculture, food security, these are pivotal areas. And we have a lot of SMEs within that space. In fact, the average person on the street is either selling fast-moving consumer goods, you know, all of these petty things that we use on a daily basis, or they're selling some form of food. Now, if all of those people have to be adding 7.5% on, nobody's gonna. It's gonna be a big issue.
So that sounds like you. That sounds like you really are laying the fears of, you know, this 7.5% VAT having a gruesome effect on people's earnings.
As much as possible. I mean, how do you expect? So the manufacturing companies are not also talking about the fact that they are CIT free if their turnover is less than 25 million. It's the fact they're focusing on. What about that other side?
So selective attention to what is not favorable to them.
So we're just calling attention to a really minor part of the whole thing, because to me that's a very good deal. And mind you, between 25 million and 100 million revenue annually, you pay only 20% as against 30. So it's when you go big, over 100 million annually, then you start paying the full 30%. But here we are. Between 25 and 100 million is 20%. Below 25 million, from 25 million down, you don't have to pay any. So your profits, you can enjoy it, and then you can also reinvest to grow your business. I mean, what else do you want from a government that claims to be...
Mr. Adekunle, now it looks like tax has always been a very big deal in Nigeria. It has always attracted so much attention.
You should say.
Okay. Now, well, I'm not an economist. I'm just a journalist. There is a limit to my knowledge as touching how tax really works in Nigeria. But I would want us to start on this note. How well are we doing in terms of earnings from tax, the impact of, you know,
using it right?
Yes,
you know,
the way
so
taxes are being used in Nigeria, so that people feel the impact of tax, even prevention of tax evasions. How well are we doing in terms of, you know, collection?
You know, there's
and even the tax management. Exactly, you know, this replication of taxes
like
and all that.
Huge burden.
If you had to rate Nigeria, how would you say we are performing? Tax collection, tax, you know.
That's a macroeconomic question. And I don't think I can do that.
Okay.
Because you've asked like 4 questions in one. So
let's break it down.
I'm supposed to rate our tax collection system.
Yes.
I'm supposed to rate our tax administration system.
Yes.
Which covers enforcement.
Exactly.
I'm supposed to rate how the government is utilizing the tax.
Yes. And more importantly, what are we doing to prevent evasion? of taxes in Nigeria. So let's take it one after the other.
Okay, so
let's start from the tax.
Let's talk about evasion. Let me address that briefly. Okay, so prior to this time, you see, there are two concepts. There's tax avoidance and there's tax evasion.
Okay.
Tax evasion is intentionally refusing to pay taxes that are due, and then that's a crime. Tax avoidance is identifying loopholes in the tax laws and then taking advantage of it to not pay tax. Which is why you find that the Tax Act keeps getting reviewed from time to time. So there was a time in Nigeria when your personal income tax, your allowances were tax exempt. And smart people at the time will tell their companies, please put me. If my entire earnings for the year is about 1 million, for example, well, please put about 700 to 800,000 as allowances, and then let only 200,000 per annum be so my basic, and then that's what will be taxed. Now that is tax avoidance, and that is a product of common sense. But tax evasion is, oh, this is my tax, I know, but I refuse to pay it. Now that's a crime.
That's a crime.
But so in terms of tax evasion, that's why you see all of this. Because, for example, we have over 54 million small businesses in Nigeria. How many will the FIRS go after to pay their taxes, to remit VAT?
And I wonder, because is it even the duty? Because once you are an employee in most places,
it's deducted at source.
It's deducted
exactly.
Also, but what happens? Is it remitted when it is even deducted at the source?
That is left to the FIRS. For your personal income tax, for personal income tax for non-governmental agencies and MDAs and co, it's to the state government. Relevant tax authorities, and then for federal government and oil companies and co, I think yes, they just go to the federal government, to the FIRS. So what happens between them is them. So that's tax. But now that but the compliance with corporate income tax, which has been a very big issue, it's easier for the FIRS to now focus on that bracket, 25 million and over 25 million brackets, and really go after them properly. That makes more sense. So the FIRS is coming to that point of realization and that sense of reality. Like, come, we'll just kill ourselves. Why don't let's focus on
chasing everybody?
Rather than trying to get everyone, let's focus on the ones that
the big timers, the ones who are really raking in the cash.
So with the administration part, which is at the collection. Before now, every Tom, Dick and Harry has to collect. As a small business, the moment you register, they've generated TIN for you. Whether you know anything about it or not, it's there. And you have to start remitting. And then if you don't remit, they're probably coming to your door to knock and then slam you with some penalties that you probably knew nothing about. And then, there you go. And when businesses now move, even the tax offices don't get to educate businesses enough about what to do as per various taxes. Most people register businesses in Nigeria, they don't even know anything about that. They don't know anything about corporate income tax, they don't know anything about withholding taxes, they don't know anything about any of these things, and they just get theirs is to open a bank account. What do I need? TIN. Okay, open it, lawyer, just get everything, pam. They have the account, they're doing business. They're not looking back, not seeing anything. And then some years down the line, FIRS comes after them, tells them, oh, you are defaulting in taxes worth this value. And they're like, how? How come? Where's the proof? And then it becomes a very messy issue. So right now that we know that businesses with 25 million naira and less are exempted, the collection is, I think, should be better managed now, because we all necessarily don't have to be burdened with that task that we did not ask for.
Okay, now it looks like one reason that people have always advanced for not wanting to pay tax has been that almost everyone is his or her own individual micro local government. Yeah. You provide your own security. You provide
security, your
you
power,
run water into your own house. You power your generator almost on daily basis. You buy fuel to provide power to run your business.
And that's also been responsible for the excuse of this extortion.
Exactly.
by organizations, say by
organizations.
banks and telecoms. Oh, you can't ask them not to deduct all this little because they get fuel, they get security, they get everything, they even get to construct the road. Is that justified? And then back to government, bringing back the whole question of justification for increasing anything. If in reality, organizations still, take their own lives, their future in their hands, and government has the little part of it to play.
You can be sure that every large organization pays. I can vouch.
Okay.
Because the government knows. I mean, those are like their cash cows, so to speak.
So they can hide.
They can't hide. Where are they going to turn to? There's nowhere to run. They're in the public sector. So
Whoa. So they have double stroke now. They have to do all these things we just mentioned, and yet they have to pay.
they have to pay. Must pay.
Must pay.
And when you speak about the banks, there's no charge that any bank will put forward that is not regulated by the CBN.
Okay.
In the first place.
So even if it is not convenient for people, it is CBN backed. So it is a proper to channel grievances towards the CBN.
So if you were party to it, you must have known that there was a downward review of some of these charges.
Yeah,
Sure. Right now, from this same Finance Act, stamp duty of 15 naira has been amended such that earnings of 10,000 naira and below are exempted from stamp duty. So because for the average small business, the argument I had all through last year was, how does a business sell a product of 1,000 naira, and for every time a customer pays 1,000 naira, that business has to part with 50 naira as stamp duty, or 2,000 naira and part with 50 naira as stamp duty and still deduct VAT from it?
That's huge.
But now 10,000 is making some sense, because a business who does 1.5 million naira per transaction will still pay the same 50 naira. Meanwhile, the small business doing 1,500, 2,000 naira was paying the same
amount.
That's injustice. So
now that, okay, we can begin to still, maybe hopefully future bills can maybe raise that margin a little further up. But 50 naira on 10,000 naira, that's still, but I may even suggest that should be, the idea of stamp duty should be considered the way COT was being charged.
Okay.
Like 1 naira per meal or something. If that can be worked into the concept of stamp duty, so that 50 naira is coming at that level, maybe about 100,000 or something per transaction. Yeah, only that the government knows that most small transactions are quite much, so there's still some wisdom in trying to keep the revenue coming in, from the 50 naira. But it's still fair. At least it's better than paying 50 naira on 1,000 naira on 5k.
Okay.
Okay, so let's take a look at tax benefits. Are Nigerians benefiting enough from the taxes being paid?
Compared to other places where they pay huge and yet they see the evidences?
It's relative. The answer is relative. If you live in certain parts of the country, you may say, I'm benefiting well enough. Yeah. But if you live in certain areas, you say, I'm not even benefiting anything.
At all.
And if you live in certain areas, you may say, well,
in between,
they are trying, but they can do better. So I think that question should actually go to the viewers. So I can't exactly say we're benefiting enough. I can't say we're not benefiting enough, and I can't say we're benefiting midway. But I think it's more of a personal experience. Because where I live, I enjoy 16 to 18 hours power supply every day.
In
Lagos.
Yeah?
Right here in Lagos.
Where?
Tell
Just
us.
let me leak it out.
Now, what about road?
Now, road not as good.
Okay.
But
Water supply, public water supply, or your own borehole?
Personal.
Power supply, water
supply.
It's
private. It's private.
Where will you find public? There are just some areas where you find that, but I don't even want it.
but it's supposed to be part of the thing to get to enjoy.
It's supposed to be, and if it's good enough, I'll use it. But I don't care.
Okay, so you belong to the class of those who will say, well, they're trying.
We've adapted. That's what has happened.
Okay, really?
We've adapted. I grew up using public power supply, public water supply. But when you get to a point where you realize that, I think you should even go to the nearest water corporation around your area and then even check and see what's happening there. Does the water look like something you want to use? There are water pipelines. running around the city. Some are dilapidated.
Some broken.
You know, so the distribution system for the water is not even effective. It can't even serve. People have constructed houses on top of where water pipelines should pass through. So what I'm saying, so it's not just their fault. We also have a part in a portion of the blame, you know, because we have violated some, you know, regulations that we shouldn't violate in terms of people that construct houses, especially. But that's not in part of the discussion for today. But the thing is, I mean, that's why I said it's relative. So I don't have much of good roads, but I have good power supply. So in a sense, at least I have something. I can shock up the remaining.
And you're not being given estimated bills.
I use prepaid meter.
Oh.
Okay.
Why are you so lucky, Mr. Adekunle? But let's take a look at, is there a place for enlightenment in the whole of this? You know, you spoke about tax avoidance, tax evasion, with a view to enhancing, with a view to ensuring that there is a more effective tax management system in Nigeria, so that even the common man on the street has a better understanding of why he's parting with whatever amount he or she is parting with at any point in time in the name of whatever type of tax it is. Is there a place of enlightenment in this, with a view to bringing people to, you know, a better understanding and to be at par with government?
Well, that's one place I really think the FRS needs to work on massively. Well, on another, you know, on the second thought, I mean, the average person does not even want to hear tax, let alone being interested in learning about it. I had to personally go out on research about taxes. Went to the FRS office and then sat with them for hours debating. I'm telling you, because I mean, if I'm to pay it, then I wanted to justify it.
Okay, so you had to go there in person for a justification of what you are paying.
I mean, what is this for? What is it? What's the essence of this? Okay, how does this work? Okay, this I don't think I should be, for what I do, this one should not be applicable. I mean, we had that debate extensively. And recently the FRS has been doing the e-payments, FRS. But the problem I have with it is, when I make the e-payment in the comfort of my home, I still have to come to your office with a slip. Why did I do e? So I told them, I mean, get this thing sorted out. What's the whole essence of the e if I still have to come in person? So if I'm making payments from a bank account for certain taxes, and then the relevant tax office, which I am assigned to, so to speak, should get a copy of my payments and a copy of everything directly. I get a copy, and then they can send me an email that they have received it. The bank can confirm all the payments, and I don't have any business going anywhere. That's the whole essence of the e. But if I have to still print it and come, then I will have just gone to the bank to go and do everything in the first place.
Okay, so I mean, and now what happens to, I mean, if at your own level you've had to go through these experiences, then what happens to the petty traders, you know? I mean,
people are not quite enlightened.
People are not that enlightened and still have to, you know, cough out these amounts, I mean, as taxes at various points.
They're not paying VAT. They pay, but they don't have to remit. They don't have to collect and remit.
Okay.
Just to consume, pay the price for whatever, for the value of what you're paying for.
And you're good.
You don't have a bother. The people that have a bother are the people that are earning over 25 million. They are the ones that have a business with FRS henceforth. The rest of us, let's maintain our lane and just enjoy.
Earlier you mentioned at the onset about the role of the media. When government policies come, you go on social media, people react, especially when people hear about money. And they notice there is an increment. People just want to complain. They don't care. They just believe, oh, this government should be about, you know, in fact, giving us food free. So, really now, is it safe to say many times a lot of people courtesy maybe new generation journalists, let's put them that way. We're talking about bloggers and the rest of them who just go online.
You want me to shake this table that you're touching right now?
No, you don't have to. Anyways, you don't have to. So, you think that, okay, let me take the responsibility now. Let's say the media. You think we're not doing enough to really get the facts right and then educate the people, like it happened in this case right now, because we have the wave of negativity surrounding this.
So, media houses need to understand that they're the first voice that the populace listen to about most matters. However insignificant you think you are, somebody is listening and paying attention. And a single statement you make can spiral into a conflagration that you can't even control. You know, Nigerian media towards the end of last year, where Trump has been impeached, and they sounded it like Trump has been removed, and we're wondering like the world has turned upside down. But really, what's impeachment? Interpreting it in terms of Nigerian law or in terms of American law. And I think our journalists and reporters should understand that if you are not a subject matter expert as a journalist in a certain area, please refrain from telling us what is not. You mislead everyone, you make a fool of yourself, and you make mockery of the integrity of the outfit. So when you talk about something as important as a finance act, and you turn a blind eye to every other part, and you narrow in on just VAT increase, then there's a problem, because you are not telling the whole truth. You're telling the truth, just a little portion, but much of the other parts that should actually even tell people and show them that, oh, a lot of good is happening, you're not. I'm not saying we should always scream joy, joy, joy in the city square, because government is not perfect and every government is not perfect. But, I mean, can you present the full picture? Oh, this is it. If you are running a business, you don't have to do this, but this, you need to do this. But rather than we just focus on the 5% to 7.5% VAT, like that's all that finance bill is about. Meanwhile, there's so much more.
I understand there is so much more. Looks like we kind of, we just read the headlines at times, not even bothering to read the content of the story, and then we tend to just, limit ourselves to what that headline has said, and then as if exactly the catchphrase, as if there isn't so much more to the story. But are there other benefits that you could actually take us through in this finance bill? Several. I mean, are there other items? Are there other content of it that you can quickly take us through to wrap this up?
If there's some that may not necessarily concern everybody, because we have some amendments that have to do with real estate investment companies. We have some that have to do with excise, goods, importation, goods imported. There's one part that's, there are so many different parts.
Okay.
But the parts that generally affect people, number one, if you run a business and your revenue is 25 million naira or less, you are exempted from VAT collection. You are not exempted from VAT payment. Howbeit, you are also exempted from corporate company income tax, which is tax on your profits, but you must file your returns at the end of the year within the stipulated time, which says you should file your returns within 6 months from the end of the year. So within that space of time, file your returns.
And you're good.
But if you're turning over between 25 million and 100 million, you pay only 20% instead of 30% on your profits. And then if you pay within 90 days, minimum of 90 days from the due date, you get a bonus of 1 to 2%. Tax relief on your corporate income tax. That means instead of paying 20%, you pay between 19 and 18%. And then the other ones, 100 million and above, 30%. So on a general note, most small businesses now have the opportunity to focus on their business. And it's also inviting unregulated businesses that are not registered to register. Register, you don't have to, you're not filing for VAT any longer. Howbeit, you pay VAT, right? But then you're not remitting, you don't have all of that administrative duty to yourself anymore. Focus on building your business, and your business can have a proper face. Not that everything is my account, my personal account. You know,
You can
and
actually
then,
manage a formal business account.
you know, so you can have a proper business account, you know, have a proper face to this thing so that you can do much more. And then that should create some anticipation for when you will enter the stage where you can begin to pay these taxes. But I mean, I don't really think there's anyone who wants to play on a big level. Everyone wants to be great, but they don't want to pay the little price for greatness. I mean,
A whole lot has been said. Thank you very much, Mr. Adeleke David
very much.
Adekunle. He is a management consultant and the executive director of Startup Plus Africa. Thanks for your time. We've been talking about, you know, tax issues in Nigeria, and more importantly, you know, the misgivings surrounding the increase of value-added tax from 5% to 7.5%. Once again, it's a pleasure having you on Unilag TV.
it's a pleasure.
Now, this is the time where we wrap it up and we hand you over to sports, you know, to take us around what's trending in the world of sport. From me, thank you very much for joining us again on the show this morning. It's been a pleasure doing this, and we meet again tomorrow morning to do it. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. And from Mayowa.
Yes, it's a pleasure being on Morning Rendezvous this morning. Looking forward to being with you tomorrow morning. So enjoy your day thoroughly, and then we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for being on the program.